make sure you join and sign up for our free newsletter at buttfumblesports.com. Now we're going to move on to our free agency area of the show, and we're going to play a game called Sign, Tag, or Let Go. Guys, this is an easy one. This is an MFK situation. We're going to go through different players. If you want to keep them, you want to sign them. If you're only going to keep them for a year, you tag them. And if you let them go, you're letting them walk into free agency. We'll go around. We'll start with Michael on this one. Michael, sign, tag, or let go Lamar Jackson.
That's tough. I'm going to go with tag.
And go ahead, please.
Oh, sorry. I just don't think that they're going to agree on a contract extension. And he's right now, he's coming off an injury. I don't know how much he's going to get on the market per se and how much people are going to be willing to trade for him. I think give him another year, see what he can do on the Ravens standpoint. For Lamar, obviously, you're going to want to bet on yourself. He's not going to be too happy being tagged. There's going to be many suitors for him. But right now, I say you got to tag him.
Adam, sign, tag, or let go Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I agree with Michael. I think you have to tag him. You're not going to just let him walk. Obviously, they're not signing him to a long-term deal for the money he wants, and Baltimore obviously doesn't want to give it to him. So I think you have to tag him to ensure that you either have him for one more year or you can tag him and try to work out some kind of sign and trade situation if you tag him for the lower amount. But, yeah, I agree with Michael. Absolutely tag him.
Consider this an echo. Agree with the take by Michael and Adam. Tag, and that way you have some options. Okay, Adam, we're going to start with you on this one. Sign, tag, or let go Saquon Barkley.
I would say no tag. If Jones needs to be tagged and they can't work out his contract. I think Saquon wants to stay in New York, and I think he will sign a contract there. I don't necessarily know if you need to tag him. I think he'll work out a deal, and I think that franchise tag needs to be there.
So that's a sign.
I'm sorry, a sign.
You're
Yeah, a sign for Barkley, and then keep the tag open for Jones if they need it if quarterback situation doesn't work out. So, yeah, sign Barkley.
Michael, what are you going with? Sign, tag, or let go Saquon Barkley?
I'm saying let go Saquon. The running back position, I personally think that that's always going to be a touchy subject after a few years in the NFL. If the Giants were to let him go, they can get Josh Jacobs. They could get other players that are going to be potential plug-in fits for the Giants. That's also something that Adam alluded to was with the whole Daniel Jones situation. That's going to be tricky with those two players. You don't know who you're going to sign, who you're going to tag. So I just think ultimately Barkley's going to test the market, and I think he's going to ultimately walk.
Michael, I have to agree with you. I'm going to go away from Adam's take here. I think they have to sign Daniel Jones, and I think franchise tagging a running back is just a bad move given how expensive they are. So just by default, I think the Giants need to let Saquon Barkley go. I'm not a big believer in signing a running back to a second contract. I don't care who it is outside of Derrick Henry. So for me, Saquon Barkley, you've done a lot for the New York Giants over the years, but you need to go cash in somewhere else, especially with his injury history. I think the Giants need to move on and let Saquon Barkley go. Michael, you brought up Josh Jacobs a moment ago. We're going to him now. Michael, what do you think? Sign, tag, or let go Josh Jacobs?
Once again, I'm saying let go. For everything that we talked about with running backs, it's always tricky. I think he also burned his bridges in Las Vegas. I don't think he wants to play for the Raiders anymore, and I don't think the Raiders want to pay him. So I think the easy solution is to let him go in free agency.
Adam, are you signing, tagging, or letting go Josh Jacobs?
I'd try to sign Josh Jacobs if you can. He's still a young back and has a lot of years ahead of him. Like you mentioned, tagging him is hard with a running back, that kind of contract. But I think you need him in the backfield to make him attractive, to have some kind of quarterback to come there, whether it be Aaron Rodgers, whoever it will be. But I think he's got a lot of years ahead of him, so I would try to sign him if possible.
We're learning a lot about how Adam values the running back position in this game. I'm going to go with Michael, and I'm going to say the same thing about Saquon Barkley, about Josh Jacobs as I said about Saquon Barkley, which is I'm not about signing a running back to a second contract. And outside of Derrick Henry, I just think the wear on the tires, Josh Jacobs is coming off his best year. He was the best running back in the NFL statistically. For that reason, he's going to go for his highest value and isn't going to be worth it. I understand that the offense would benefit from having him tremendously, And Josh McDaniels is going to certainly miss him next year. But they need to move on from him, and they need to vote some of that capital to other positions, because I think you can find running backs. I think you're going to need to pay cornerbacks. I think you're going to need to pay defensive players. You're going to have to pay Max Crosby and other players. So I think it's really important that the Raiders don't hold on to Josh Jacobs. And also, there are going to be running backs on the market. One of those running backs is Tony Pollard. He obviously had an injury in that playoff game. That's going to impact, I'm sure, his dollars or length of time on the deal. But Tony Pollard could land on the market. Adam, do you think the Dallas Cowboys should sign, tag, or let Tony Pollard go?
I think because of the injury status that he is a more dynamic player than Elliott seems to be here. He was much more valuable to that offense. But I think with Elliott's cap hit that he'll be next year, I think it's like 15 or 16 million. I think Pollard is going to have to be let go here in this situation.
Well, I feel like they're going to move on from Zeke. Adam, are you saying that the Cowboys are going to keep Zeke, but they're going to let Pollard go?
I would like to keep Pollard over Zeke, but I think the Cowboys, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're still on the hook for another year at like 16 or 17 million with Elliott, if I'm not mistaken.
Michael, Tony Pollard, sign, tag, or let go?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Wyatt. I think that you should keep Pollard, and I think you should cut Elliott. You save a lot of money in cap space by cutting Elliott. I know Pollard's coming back from an injury, but that would give you the opportunity to sign like someone like a Jeff Wilson or a David Montgomery to a cheaper deal to just fill in until Pollard comes back healthy.
Michael, are you signing Tony Pollard or are you tagging him?
I'm signing Tony Pollard, and the side note was to cut Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, Michael, we're having a similar bingo card in this game, because I feel like Tony Pollard actually is going to be worth it, in part because the injury gives you a discount. If I'm the Dallas Cowboys, as awful as this sounds, I kind of benefit from the injury, because Tony Pollard's people are going to want to lock up some years and some security. Well, that works in my favor. Tony Pollard was an outstanding running back this past year. He's shown a lot of talent. Do I think this injury is going to prevent him from returning to that level of running back? I don't think so. I think he's going to come back just fine. And for that reason, I feel like I'm getting him at a good discount. It's the rare situation where I am signing that running back. But I ultimately think that given what the free agency market value, average value is going to be, I think Tony Pollard actually is going to be a pretty good value because of the injury. And yes, you're going to drop Zeke. You say goodbye to the cost of him. And to Michael's point, you make it a tandem backfield. And the reason I wouldn't tag Tony Pollard is because of the injury. I want to sign him and use the injury as leverage to get long-term opportunity with him. Tagging him is really just paying for him to have rehab and to try and come back from that. So you don't want to tag him. You want to sign him. I think that's what the Cowboys should do. Our last running back of sign, tag, or let go is Miles Sanders. Adam, should we sign, or should the Eagles sign, tag, or let go Miles Sanders?
Well, I think with Miles Sanders, that's a little bit tough, but I think because of the surgence of Kenneth Gainwell, he got a lot more trust as the season went on. I think he could be more of a dynamic player. And I think Philadelphia has a long list of free agents that they're going to need to sign that are probably a little bit more important than the running back position. And although Miles Sanders was a key to that offense with Gainwell and Scott, and like you mentioned, some of these draft choices that are coming out, you can probably backfill a third running back slot there. But if I'm not mistaken, I think they have a couple of offensive linemen coming up, a couple of defensive linemen coming up. Big Cox and Quinn, I think, are free agents. So I think that money needs to go elsewhere than signing Miles Sanders.
Michael, Miles Sanders, sign, tag, or let go?
I'm going to say sign, just because you also have Boston Scott as an unrestricted free agent. And I think Miles Sanders, he's just a dynamic back out of in the backfield, but also as a pass catching running back. There are not many, in my opinion, that are going to be dynamic in both. I just think he's too good to let go.
Finally, Michael and I disagree, because I'm letting Miles Sanders go. I think Miles Sanders is the kind of running back you can find in the draft. In round 4, round 5, I think you can find someone like him. I think Isaiah Pacheco was an example of that for the Chiefs. The Chiefs got him in the 7th round. I think Miles Sanders really good. I think that Eagles offensive line is the reason he was so good. I'll let Miles Sanders go, save my money, put it elsewhere. We're now going to go to other positions since we've just covered running back for a little bit. Sign, tag, or let go Jacoby Myers. Michael, we'll start with you. Not a lot of running backs available on this free agency market. Jacoby Myers has been pretty consistent with the Patriots. Are you signing, tagging, or letting him go if you're the Pats?
I personally just wasn't a big fan of any of the Patriots receivers. It's not because of them, it's because of who's throwing them the ball. So in my mind, I'm letting go Jacoby Myers just because, in my opinion, they just shouldn't be spending money on pass catchers until they get a different quarterback. That's just me.
Adam, what do you think? Sign, tag, or let go Jacoby Myers?
I think you try to sign him if you can to a reasonable contract. I think his expectations might be higher than what he thinks is actually going to get on the market. But I think because of I agree with Michael that the quarterback position to me, I think needs to be addressed. But I think with his, lack of a better word, his chemistry with Jones over the last 2 years, I think has been good. And I think you need that going forward. But I agree with Michael. I think the quarterback position is an issue there in New England.
Obviously, I'm one of the rare people who has any sliver of belief in Mac Jones. I think his regression was a more of a function of Matt Patricia than what Mac Jones can ultimately be. I think Jacoby Myers is actually one of the more solid receivers that you can find. Gets open, doesn't get a lot of touchdowns. It was kind of famous. He went a long time in his career before ultimately finding the end zone. But he's a good receiver. And the Patriots don't have a lot of talent at wide receiver right now. I think he's just someone you need to keep. Again, I'm not crazy about the wide receiver class in this draft as much as others are, like Adam. And for that reason, I think you kind of need to hold on to what you have. I think Jacoby Myers is going to ask for too much. I'd be curious to know who actually offers it to him. The Patriots famously like to let free agents go out there, see what the market actually offers them. And oftentimes they come back to the Patriots and find a middle ground. That was during the Tom Brady era. We'll see if that continues in the post-Tom Brady era and the Mac Jones era. But I think if I'm the Patriots, I'm still trying to make an effort to sign him. I'm certainly not trying to tag him, but I am trying to sign him to a 4-year deal, try to secure something that keeps him through his prime. The final offensive player we're going to talk about in this game is Evan Ingram, the tight end of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He bet on himself. 1-year deal with the Jaguars, was really successful in that offense. If you are the Jacksonville Jaguars, Michael, are you signing, tagging, or letting go Evan Ingram?
Yeah, I'm going to sign Evan Ingram. I actually loved his resurgence in Jacksonville. I think he and Trevor Lawrence have great chemistry together. I think he was another reason why Trevor Lawrence turned around the later half of his season last year and why they ultimately made the playoffs. So I think that he's an important part to their offense. So I'm going to sign him. His market value, I think, is around $9 million per year. I think they can afford it.
Adam, what are your thoughts? Evan Ingram, sign, tag, or let go?
Yeah, I think he wants to be in Jacksonville, especially coming out of New York. Like you mentioned, a little bit of resurgence with his career with Trevor Lawrence. So I think he wants to be in Jacksonville, and I would definitely sign him to bring him back with that offense, trying to keep most of those core guys together as they finish up the season strong. So I would definitely try to sign him.
Make it a clean sweep. We're all on sign. Evan Ingram fits so well with Trevor Lawrence. I did at one point consider tagging him because while this year's draft class for tight end is really good, next year's could be even better. There's a lot of talent at that position coming over the next 2 years. So part of me thinks Jacksonville should dip into the tight end position in the draft. Maybe that means you tag Ingram for a year. It really, for me, depends what he's asking for. If Ingram's smart, he's willing to meet Jacksonville at the right price, stay with Trevor Lawrence for the next few years of his career, could help them both thrive. For me, that's why I go with sign like Adam and Michael do. Okay, we have a couple defensive players before we end the game. Sign, tag, or let go, Adam. Jesse Bates, the safety of the Cincinnati Bengals. Should the Bengals sign, tag, or let go Jesse Bates?
I think I'll let go Jesse Bates here. I think you can backfill that safety position either through the draft or back end of free agency. And I think with Burrow and Chase and some of these other big name guys that are coming up, you're going to need that space as well. And I don't think Bates is worthy of either tagging or trying to sign to a long-term expensive deal.
I agree with you, Adam. I'll jump in here before we get to Michael. I think this is a breakup that's in the works. They couldn't get a deal done last year. He played the year on a tag. I don't see this going any further. I definitely think that Jesse Bates is going to ultimately end up in free agency. Michael, do you complete the sweep? Do you, if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, are you letting Jesse Bates go?
100%, I am completing the sweep. I do agree with Adam. You got to save the money. You got all those big name players on the offense that you got to pay if you want to keep them.
Next player is Javon Hargrave of the Philadelphia Eagles. Michael, big time defensive tackle. Should the Eagles sign, tag, or let go Javon Hargrave?
I'm going to say let go. I just think that they got a lot of good players on the line that they can afford to let him go.
I'm going to agree with you. I thought that's why they drafted Jordan Davis last year out of Georgia, rather. Jordan Davis is a freak athlete. He is a Vince Wilfork type in that he's not going to be moved by double teams. I think he's the guy who's ultimately going to move into that starting role. I think it made Javon Hargrave expendable. Adam, are you completing the sweep on this one? Are you letting Hargrave go, or are you signing or tagging him?
Yeah, I agree. I think you'd let him go with the other free agents that you have to sign. And plus, to Michael's point, that Philadelphia defensive line was really good no matter who they rotated through there. So I think you can save the money elsewhere, and I would do the same thing. I would let him go.
Okay, our last player of our game, sign, tag, or let go, is Jordan Poyer. I'll start with this one. Jordan Poyer, I think, is one of the most important players on the Buffalo Bills, offense or defense. Without him, I think they are a much different team, especially in personality. I know he wants his money. If I'm Buffalo, I'm tagging him. I'm using the franchise tag because he has an injury history. I don't want to sign him to a longer-term deal, but I want one more year with him. If the Bills window is supposedly closing, you have to do everything if you're a Buffalo GM to prop it up a little longer. Letting Jordan Poyer go would be a disaster in trying to keep that window a little, wider or keep it open. You got to keep Jordan Poyer. If nothing else for next year, I'm tagging him. That's the move I'm making on him. Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, 100% agreement. And, we talked about in our weekly shows during the NFL last year, how many times did we say when Poyer was out, that whole defense was a different team. And I forget what the stat was, whether they were 1-4 or whatever it was.
The only game they lost in which he started was the playoff game against the
exactly.
Bengals.
So he's a game changer for that defense. So I'm 100% in agreement with you that letting him go would be a complete train wreck, and you definitely need to get one more year out of him. As like we mentioned, it's a different football team with him on the field.
Michael, what are your thoughts? Jordan Poyer, should the Bills sign, tag, or let him go?
I also agree that it would be a mistake to let him go. So I do agree to tag him. I actually don't think Poyer would be too happy with the tag. I think he's going to want a nice contract. And if he does ultimately leave, I see the Dolphins as a great fit for him. And I think he does want to come down here. But ultimately, I do see the Bills as wanting to tag him to keep him because, as you guys alluded to, that secondary is nothing without him.
By the way, I totally agree with you, Michael. Miami would be a perfect fit for him. One of the many reasons in which I don't think that Buffalo can afford to let him go, because I think there are too many competitive teams within the AFC that would want to scoop him up. He's that